Good morning. You're listening to the Blaine's World podcast here on wherever you're watching it, but you can also find us each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. In addition, we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and as well, you can get more information on the blainesworld.net website. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Emily Brookshire and Blake Freeman, both with Mars Hill University Theater Arts. And guys, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. So that's Blake and Emily. And I should mention that Emily Brookshire is a native to Asheville, performing at many community theater companies. She's a full-time musical theater student at Mars Hill University. And I think that's how we must have become Facebook friends, I guess. I saw you in some production, Emily, or at SOD or at Mars Hill. I'm trying to think how.
I think the first time I met you might have been at ACT.
Okay. Oh, what were you in ACT?
The Fantastics.
Yeah, I saw that. Oh, it's so good. That was the first time. And I loved it. And Blake Freeman is a senior at Mars Hill University, studying theater arts with a concentration in technical work. He's looking to pursue lighting design and acting for television and film. And they are both in the current production of Sweet Charity, which will be at Mars Hill University in a couple of weeks. And you're in for a treat, folks, because this is one fun, fine musical. And let me ask you both, I guess, starting out, maybe I'll start out with Blake. As a kid, you grew up where?
Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay. As a kid growing up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, did you always know you want to be a theater guy?
No, I actually didn't know until a couple years ago, actually.
So what was the first time you were ever in theater?
This is actually like the first real big production I've been a part of. This past winter season for SART, I played Marley in Christmas Carol, but other than that, I haven't really done too much work on stage.
Do you remember, in terms of on stage, and we'll talk about behind the stage, do you remember your first role on stage?
Marley in Christmas Carol.
Oh, was it really? Okay, so you had never acted before then? Or on stage?
Well, I do. Yeah, on stage I haven't, no.
Okay, but you act, he acts on his own off stage. He acts up. But so in terms of the technical background, so you kind of are interested in that. When did you first get involved in that aspect of theater?
A couple years ago as well.
What was that?
The first show I ever worked on was Little Shop of Horrors that we did at Mars Hill.
Okay, and what was your role in that? What were you doing?
Follow spot.
Okay, and so one of the cool things about what you're doing, I think, is that if somebody can combine both backgrounds, I think it just doubles your chances of getting employed, in terms of being able to do technical stuff, but you still want to do acting as well. Yeah. And so, Emily, you were involved, I guess, a little before then. You started in theater when?
Oh, God. My first show ever was when I was in 5th grade. And I was in a production of Annie.
Okay, and what was your role?
I played the star to be.
Okay.
It was a small role, but...
Well, here's the idea I want to share with you, Emily, and you can mention it to people at Mars Hill. But I have this great idea for a fundraiser. So that first role you ever played, you were in 5th grade. Do they have a record of that anywhere?
I think there's a picture somewhere.
Okay, but nobody ever taped it or didn't videotape it?
I don't think so.
Okay, but here's the idea, and I've shared it with Chelsea at SOD, but I would love everybody to recreate the very first role as a fundraiser. So you get on and just for 5 minutes do your first role when you were in 5th grade. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be really fun. I would enjoy that.
And you can pass it on to other people. So you started acting in 5th grade. Take it from there.
So I started acting in 5th grade. And then when I got to middle school, which my middle school was only 7th and 8th grade, we didn't have a theater program at all. So I just stuck to choir. And then I got into high school and I decided that I wanted to play sports. So I played soccer. And then I saw a production of my high school's Cinderella that I really enjoyed. And I was like, why am I not up there doing that? Like, I should not be playing soccer. So the next year I auditioned for Legally Blonde and I got a supporting role. and I was like, maybe this is my thing. Like I can do this. And so I kept auditioning for years and years. And then I had a friend that had done shows at Asheville Community Theater, and I thought that's a cool thing for me to try. So I auditioned for Footloose, and I got in as ensemble. And then I auditioned for The Wizard of Oz, and I made ensemble. And then finally, I did The Fantastics, and I got Louisa, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I decided, I think I could do this for forever. Like, I love it so much. So I decided I want to go to school for it, and now I'm here.
And I think I had the fortune of seeing you, I think, in all three of the shows you mentioned. No offense, I don't think I knew you when you remember the ensemble, but
Yeah.
boy, Fantastics, that was, you really hit that. That must have been exciting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you came to Mars Hill. When you started at Mars Hill, did you start out as a theater major?
Yeah. So I was musical theater, and the first show we did was Little Shop of Horrors, which I had played Audrey in, which was pretty cool.
And I'm thinking out loud too, that wouldn't it be cool if you combine two things? So the soccer and the theater, and we should get you a role if they ever do a fourth season of Ted Lasso. Have you seen Ted Lasso at all?
No, I've seen clips of it. I've never watched the full show though.
Yeah, your mom tells us to watch it all the time.
But yeah, it's just a great show. But there you combine soccer and theater. What was there film a couple of years ago? What was the film about a woman soccer player? It was a big film. Anyway, someday we'll come up, or you will have the two of you be in the first soccer musical. Maybe we'll combine the two.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the two things then you've done, and I guess Blake, I don't know if you've done this. Blake, have you done anything? You just mentioned Saw It. So you both now, and explain the relationship. So being a theater major at Mars Hill University, you also get a chance to audition or participate in some of the Saw It productions.
Yeah, I think it's like a really good opportunity that us students have. Like, it's an advantage for us to step into the professional world and see what professional works are like. So
Okay, and the same thing too. Have you been in Saw It productions as well?
Yeah. So I started my freshman year at Mars Hill. I started in the internship program, and I was their first ever intern. And then the next year after that, which was last summer, I was still in the internship program, but they changed it this time, so the interns could actually be in shows. So I got to be in The Hunchback of Notre Dame and The Wedding Singer.
Okay, what, two great shows too, weren't they?
It was
Okay.
really a really cool experience.
Well, that's really cool. And I'll ask Blake too. Were you ever in the intern program at Mars Hill?
I did a smaller internship program over this past winter break that we had. So I worked on Christmas Carol. I was Marley on stage, and then I was also assistant lighting designer and sound designer for Saxmas.
Now, at this point in time, Blake, do you have a preference in terms of acting or behind the scenes?
So when it comes to theater, I'd rather do behind the scenes stuff, lighting and sound. And then if it's TV and film, I'd rather be acting.
Okay, because a lot of people don't realize, you're saying behind the scenes, but how many people are involved in production, in terms of, it's almost unfortunate that people see just the people on stage, 4, 5, 10 people, but there are a lot of other people behind the scenes doing all the work. Typically, like, talk to me even in terms of Sweet Charity. So you have how many people in the cast, ballpark? Do you know?
About
Upwards of 30.
Yeah.
How many?
Upwards of 30.
Wow, that's a lot of people
including
in the cast.
just like ensemble and all that stuff. Yeah.
And how many people behind the scenes?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
5 to 10. 5 to 10.
Probably,
Okay.
yeah, 5 to 10.
Closer to 5 though, I'd say.
Because I don't know if you ever were either of you two ever stage manager for a production?
I'm gonna be stage managing a student production coming up after Sweet Charity.
Good. So
I've never stage managed. I've worked backstage, but never stage managed.
somebody once told me, actually, somebody in theater, that's a great experience for anybody in theater to do, even if they're acting or lighting, whatever, but behind stage manager, you really see all the stuff that goes on involved in the theater. Talk about Sweet Charity then. First of all, who made the choice to do Sweet Charity for a student production?
Sue.
I think it was a combination of our department head, Sue Fair, and then the director, Chelsea Gaddy, obviously. And it was a huge kind of conversation they had between Chelsea and Amanda Hoyt, our our choreographer, sorry, because it's a huge dance show. And Mars Hill, we have a lot of great singers and actors, and I think for most of us, at least I know for myself, we are the least talented in our dancing efforts. But Amanda's put together a really good show.
I can agree with that.
And what's so surprising, but in a good way, Emily, is that you've chosen this particular show in that years ago, before your time, before Blake's time, Marcel would have never put on this show, just because I don't know if you know some of the history of it, just because the nature of the show and the theme of it. So when you were doing it, I was so pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, we had to go through a couple loopholes to get the go ahead from the higher ups.
Was any of the show changed at all?
I don't think any of the show's been changed, other than the fact, like when you're thinking about costuming, they're just a little toned down.
Okay. And for the benefit, I'll ask either two of you want to ask the question, but for the benefit of folks who don't know the show, and it hasn't been done, which is so exciting, it hasn't been done locally in all the time I've been in the Asheville area. Can you give me kind of like a Reader's Digest summary of it in maybe half an hour or less? No, it is not half an hour, but
Half an hour or less.
Just in a couple minutes. Like what's this story about?
So it's about a girl named Charity. She's a dance hall hostess, or she works at the club, pretty much dances with men and does favors for them, if you know what I mean, favors. But in an event, one of her biggest flaws is she can't find love. Like, no one wants to fall in love with her. Eventually, she ends up finding somebody for her. But I think that's about all I should say without giving away too much.
Well, it remind me then, because I don't know the names, so I know Charity, but is Oscar the guy she falls in love with?
Yes.
Okay, and it's a great role then. I'm impressed she's taking on the role because it's a real classy guy, right? Emily, just a really nice kind of guy, down to earth, really takes care of his women very well. So Oscar, that's a fun role to have. So in terms of preparing for the role, talk about the process, because a lot of people don't realize it. They'll come. Unfortunately, the show is going to be only for 4 nights, or 3 nights and a Sunday afternoon. Is that correct? And so, how long have you been working on
it? So
since winter break.
For you.
Oh yeah. Well, let me talk about that first. Then.
So
since winter break, which was probably the second week in December, we went on break and we came back first week in January. So January till now, we've been working on the show. But he has special circumstances.
Okay, and his special circumstances were?
So I originally didn't even audition for the show. Like, I was just focusing on tech stuff. I'm not gonna name drop, but the lead that had Oscar didn't come back to school. So they were all freaking out and they were like, "Do you want to do this?" And I was like, "I don't sing. I've never sang a day in my life." And I was like, "Well, let me see the script. I'll read it over and then I'll think on it." And when I was reading the script, what stood out to me that it was a role that I think could challenge me as an actor and help push me to another level. So that's kind of why I agreed to do it. But so I've been working on it halfway through January till now.
And talk about working on it then, Blake, what does that entail in terms of how often do you rehearse and how long are the rehearsals?
Rehearsals are just about every day. We have a slot during the days, like 11 to 1 or 12 to 1, that we'll get together and do a dance review or a music rehearsal. Blocking rehearsals are typically at the later rehearsals when we have 3 or 4 hours to block and do all that stuff.
Now, is this Emily, is this the largest cast you've ever been in?
Oh no, I've been in probably the biggest cast I've ever been in was like 45, 50 people.
Okay, that's
which is a
of
lot of people to have on stage at one time. And you got to think about Mars Hill's stage, because in the Owen Theater, it's tiny. So you got to think about how many people you can really fit on that stage in a dance number.
Well, even in terms of tiny, but they did a great job. The one musical you mentioned, it was what, Hunchback of Notre Dame. You were in that, right? And there were a lot of people in that show, and that was to get on that cast as well. So same thing too, Emily. So you knew, I guess, in December you're going to be in the cast. You had to audition for it initially.
Yes.
To get chosen for it. And so you knew since December, and you've been working on it, same thing too, almost every day since December. How often do you have rehearsals?
Every day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they're in that 12 to 1 slot, or 11 to 1. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, typically they're 7 o'clock to 10 at night.
Okay, and it's just,
but we also have Saturday rehearsals.
Okay, just incredible when you think about it, how much time you put into this, before, that's why I want people to actually see this, the 4 nights of performances, you spend a lot of time on it. Talk also about the other people you're working with. So Blake mentioned in terms of people he's worked with, how he got chosen. So you're working with, I guess, a lot of different people. We'll start up from the top. Chelsea, last name is going by Gaddy now, Chelsea, and she's the director, right?
Yes.
Who else are you working with on this?
So our music director is Chuck Taft. And then our choreographer is Amanda Hoyt, the dance teacher here at Mars Hill. We also have our tech, everything tech. You can ask Andrew Zabrowski.
Yeah,
he's like
he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And how about the stage, the setting? Who's in charge of the setting?
That would be Andrew as well.
Oh, okay, great.
And students.
And students, yes. We do have a workshop class where we help build the set. So it's pretty much all hands on deck all the time. Okay,
and that's I guess, to both of your credit, but back to what Blake was saying, that's one of the beauties of, I guess, being a Mars Hill theater student, is that you're going to get experience in lots of different fields, rather than just one thing. Because in terms of getting employment in theater, if you don't land a big role or something, you still want to be involved in theater too. What's the toughest part for you, Emily, of this part so far? Or what do you see as the toughest part?
Well, I feel like for me, singing and acting comes very naturally. I've been doing it for a while. The toughest part has got to be the dancing. I am not a dancer, never have been a dancer. I've cheered for 14 years, but cheer is extremely, extremely different from dancing. And it's hard because the amount of dancing that I've done when I've done shows has been with a group of people. Like, I've had people to look at if I mess up and see what they're doing, but I have some solo dance numbers in this show, and it's really challenging, especially when I'm doing acting, singing, and dancing all at once. But it's a really good challenge because I needed something that kind of, got me to the next level.
And same thing too, Blake, what was your toughest part for this so far?
At first, it was the singing, because, like I said, I'd never sang before. And then working with Chuck has just been absolutely phenomenal. He's worked wonders with me. I feel like we've got it down for the most part. Just got to do a little cleanup. But right now, the toughest part is the dancing, because I don't dance either.
Reminds me, guys, of an experience I had at ACT, Asheville Community Theater, and that several years ago. They did a charity production or something, and I was asked to something to sing and dance, and I don't do either of them, plus the dancing. And so at the very end, Emily, we rehearsed this for just a couple of days. Then they said you had to dance, and everybody's running into each other. These people have never danced before. There are like 20 people on stage. And it was very, very tough. I had enough trouble remembering the music and the words, and to have to dance with other people on stage. It wasn't a pretty sight, So the key thing I could do, you can't do, but maybe, and Blake can't do it either, is just stay in the background. Let other people
Can on all but one.
It's hard to stay in the background when you're the only one on stage, that's for sure.
Exactly, especially the main character. Let me ask you both too, something I'm always interested in terms of memorizing both dialogue and music. Is that tough for you, Blake?
I think before I started learning it all, it sounded harder than it was. I found just listening to the songs whenever I'm in the car or whenever I have free time, it's really just helped everything piece together a lot easier and a lot smoother.
Now, when you listen to the song, so you listening to the original version of it,
Yeah.
or the
The
which is,
Broadway
which-
You
version.
do both. You listen to the rehearsal tracks too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes.
but isn't the Broadway track just the Broadway thing is just one of the great cast albums I think of all time. And
oh
same,
yeah, it's great.
I just love it. And same thing with you, Emily. Is that tough for you memorizing dialogue or music?
I think I've been doing it for so long, it just comes to me. I have a process where I like to write down all my lines and make sure I remember them, like that brain to paper thing really works for me, but I thought it was going to be a lot more difficult because I am on stage the whole entire time. But I think I'm in a very comfortable place for our show opening in 10 days.
Plenty of time. When you are rehearsing too or learning your lines, do you read with other people? I'm curious, but some people like doing that, some people don't. Do you do that?
I like to write down my lines first and then read it to myself. And then I'll get Blake to read the other lines for me just to keep me on track.
I'm slowly learning a lot of the other parts in the show.
Okay. And that's, I guess, let me ask you, as a result of doing this, and I always ask actors this, down the road, do you think you ever want to do directing?
I'd like to, but
I would love to direct.
But the real reason I'll put you on the spot, both of you, that some people say they love to direct is because you don't have to memorize all the lines and have somebody else do that. But well, it's cool because I guess at Mars Hill you have the opportunity. They do student productions, and you get a chance to sometimes direct in
Yep.
those as well.
yeah, we're actually we're taking a directing class right now with Sue Fair, and we're directing her students in the acting 1 class. So
Okay.
we're directing a class we took before.
Is that fun?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so fun. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you something else, which is kind of cool about the two of you, is if I can share, and I think you've given me permission to do so, but aside from starring in this show, you also tend to hang out a little bit with each other. Is that correct?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Well, how long you been hanging out?
A year and
4 months and
4
1 day.
months.
Okay, but who counts, right?
Right.
Come Monday. Well, I'll give you the secret though. If I ever ask you that in the future, I don't want Emily to hear the answer to this, but ask me how long I've been married.
Ask him.
Oh, right now. I thought he meant.
Yeah. No,
future.
no, ask me.
How long have you been married?
Not long enough.
Oh,
You get it? So that's what you want to do.
I didn't hear
and-
that.
Yeah, exactly right. No, but especially for a guy to mention that, Emily, in front of somebody else, it's a really cool line. And the nice thing about it too, you don't have to worry about when you first met, a year and 4 months. You don't have to remember. Not long
I
enough.
don't remember the year.
Yeah, exactly. You're grateful. Let me ask you that, Emily. I'll ask you: is that tough in terms of playing in a show playing against somebody you hang out with also?
I think it's the best thing that's ever happened to me because I get so nervous with like being intimate with other people, and it's so good that we're already comfortable with each other that we can just play and just have fun and do whatever we want. But we also gotta remember we've taken intimacy training, stuff like that, so we can't just kiss whenever we want. We gotta play by the rules.
Oh, wait, talk about that. And a lot of people don't realize that. That's interesting you said that. So you've done, there is something called intimacy training?
Yeah, so we had an intimacy coordinator. I can't remember her name right now, but she did a workshop with the Marcel students.
Her name was Laura something.
Yeah, I'm not sure her last name, but she did a workshop with the Marcel students in the theater department, and she kind of just like went through the guidelines of what goes down, whether you're on stage or on a TV film set, and how you're supposed to act around your scene partner if you're doing intimacy choreography or stuff. She talked about how everything's always scripted, nothing's like spur of the moment, do this, do that, and it just makes your actors more comfortable on stage.
And same question you, Evan, because people don't realize, or Blake, because people don't realize that Was it difficult playing against somebody you know, or is it easier?
I think it's easier for the most part, except there's one scene that's gonna be challenging. So
Okay, so people have to kind of watch it and then kind of predict what that one scene is. Okay.
yeah,
well,
it should be fairly predictable, but
oh,
Just say he can't be mean to me. It hurts his soul.
well, no, exactly, and we're typically giving a little bit of the show away, but yeah, your character is quite a character in terms of sweet charity is the premise of the show, and you can't always be all that nice to her. Talk about after this show. So the show again, Emma, can you repeat the Emily? Can you repeat the dates of the show?
The 23rd, March 23rd through the 26th.
Okay, and if folks want to get tickets to the show, what's the best bet?
So you can buy tickets through MHU Theater, THEATRE.ludus.com, and it'll take you straight to our ticket website.
Okay, and I recommend if folks want to see the show to get tickets in advance, because one of the great things about Owen Theater is that every seat is pretty much a good seat, but you're going to have to get tickets. There aren't that many seats. How many seats are in the theater? Do you know?
I think 250, roughly
200
250.
to 250.
Yeah.
It's such a great theater. I just love it, and to see a show there, and so this show should be quite something. After the show is over, so show's going to be over late March. Plans in terms of theater plans, at least. Blake, what do you see yourself doing?
I want to pursue the lighting and sound technical director job. I've been talking to a couple people about doing that. So just kind of find a steady job to hold down.
Because you're graduating.
Because I'm graduating in May, yeah.
In May, from Mars Hill, and you're
Yeah.
looking for a job in theater. Like you said, a steady job, and that'll be a challenge, I guess. So, do you see yourself anything after March? Do we have another other student production or SART production you're going to be in or involved in?
I will be in the jazz showcase festival situation. It's a collaboration with the music department and like their jazz band. And that's April 18th.
Okay.
Our
So you don't
stage
have- Yeah.
Katie Crutcher, she's writing her own show. I don't know exactly the dates for it, but I'll be stage managing that while that's going on. But that'll be before the end of the school year.
Okay, so you don't have much time off, and you finish Sweet Charity, and you seem
Yeah.
like you're going right into your next gig. But
Yeah.
that should be keep it challenging. And so, Emily, you're a junior, is that it?
Yeah,
So you'll be back next year.
I will be back.
And will you be doing anything over the summer? Will you be involved in any of the SART productions?
Hopefully I'll be working at SART. I think I'm taking the summer off from acting, from performing. But hopefully I'll be able to still work there in a kind of a behind the scenes kind of situation.
It's probably, I imagine too, for you, it's probably a good idea to take a break every so often from being in
Yeah,
a play.
I've been go since
Your
freshman year of high school.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Yeah.
the amazing thing about not only Emily, Blake, but all actors, is that especially when they're in one production, and Emily, you can probably talk to this. Have you ever been in one production and then working on another or two other productions at the same time? Have
I've
you ever
been
done
in
that?
2 productions at the same time.
We kind of had that with acting 3.
Kind of. Yeah. In high school I was in my fall play, a straight play, and then I was doing The Wizard of Oz at the same time. So I was going from one rehearsal to the next rehearsal, and I was like, oh no, I can't mess up. I gotta make sure I'm doing this show right now, not this show.
Have you ever had any trouble getting the two roles together, confusing the two roles?
Thankfully, no, because those 2 shows that I was doing, they were vastly different. So I had an easy time kind of differentiating the two, but it can get tricky sometimes, that's for sure.
Because the most amazing thing, Blake, I see, is that when somebody's acting one show, rehearsing a second, and they're auditioning for a third, or readings of the third, it's I guess one of the things in theater, I don't know if you both have them, but I guess you need to have a good pair of roller skates also to get between, you know,
Oh yeah.
even rehearsals and on top of that, you still have to do other school stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it keeps you busy a little bit. Anyway, one last time, first of all, I want to thank you both for being my guests on this Blaines World podcast. I'd also like to invite everybody to attend this show because, again, anything that Mars Hill Theater does, it's good stuff. And especially with two of you, and it should be a lot of fun. And so the dates again, Emily, one time are
March 23rd through the 26th in the Owen Theater. And you can buy tickets at MHU Theater, THEATRE.ludus.com.
and anyway, I look forward to seeing you in Sweet Charity, plus all the other stuff you do in the future. Same thing too, Blake. I look forward to seeing you in Sweet Charity. And then you mentioned earlier, you're also interested in doing some film work as well.
Yes, sir. I take on camera acting classes in Black Mountain at the Actor Center of Asheville
Oh,
with
yeah,
Kevin Patrick Murphy. Fantastic,
yeah,
fantastic
great.
guy.
Yeah, Kevin was a guest on my show as well. Great school there too. So that's
Wow.
what you do in your spare time.
Yep, every Wednesday.
Okay, great. And so
Except-
you want to combine the techno background with some film work?
I'm open to it.
Have you done
Open to
anything
it.
yet?
Not in film, no.
Okay. Well, this is exciting for you. So this will be the first time you're on film. We're going to have,
Oh, yeah.
we're going to make you a star, Blake. Anyway, I'd like to thank Emily Brookshire and Blake Freeman, both from Mars Hill University Theater Arts, and they just do a great job at that School for Theater Arts, being my guest on today's Blaines World podcast. I'd like to also thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. I look forward to having you join me each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, you can find us. Thanks, guys. I'll say goodbye and just stay with me 1 second afterward. Thanks, guys.